This week, we're taking cameras behind the scenes and following 5 of the best bowlers in the world for one of the most important stretches in their careers. Not just on the lanes, but off.
Let's go, people!
You'll get to know these bowlers like never before, meet their families, find out how they spend their free time, and listen in as they talk with coaches and ball reps about how to attack the lanes.
Over here is exactly what I was picturing.
Last year's Bowler of the Year, Sean Rash, looks to keep his momentum going against his rival, Jason Belmonte, who won more tournaments last season than anyone else. Bill O'Neill, who looked to be on his way to dominating the tour a couple of years ago, looks to get back in the winner's circle after a year without a title. Tommy Jones, finally healthy after battling injury, looks to get back to the form that has won him 14 titles. And Missy Parkin, who will put herself to the ultimate test and try her hand against the guys, while hoping to bring home a national women's title at the same time. It's the World Series of Bowling, from the inside.
A few weeks after I was born, Mum and Dad opened the doors to the Orange 10-pin bowl in my hometown. And, you know, when your parents start a business together, they're there pretty much all the hours themselves. So I was either at home or I was at the bowl, kind of making mischief there, getting in their way most of the time. But those were really the two places. So I essentially grew up in a bowling center.
10,000 miles from Las Vegas, a young Jason Belmonte first picked up a bowling ball in Orange, New South Wales, Australia. And he did it instinctively with 2 hands.
Well, it started off that way. As an 18-month-old baby, I would pick up, the lightest ball we had was 10 pounds back then. So I would kind of like just lift it up and drop it onto the ground and then roll it and push it forward with 2 hands. And as I was getting a little bit older, I could actually hold this 10-pound ball quite easily, but I couldn't swing it with 1 hand. So I would have to use 2 hands.
What was the moment where you realized that you were good at this, that you could compete at a high level?
It's a really good question because I'm from a very small country town. So the amount of bowlers and the bowling skill that we had in Orange, now that I've ventured out into the world, I realise now was very limited.
Belmonte took out the overall Boys Championship Cup and played in the Australian team that claimed the overall Youth Championship.
The Orange 10-pin bowler has returned home following his 2 gold medals at the recent World Youth Championships in Guam.
But I remember when I was about 10 or 11 and I was beating the majority of the adults in our leagues and things like that. My averages were always, in all the leagues I did, were always high. And I just never really took it to the next level. I never thought, I'm gonna be doing this for my career or my job. For me, I'm a very competitive person, even when I was that young. So if there was someone's name above my name, no matter how old they were or whoever they were, that had a higher average or was doing better, I wanted to get my name above that person.
But that person never included the stars of the PBA. Professional bowling simply wasn't a part of Australian culture. And while Jason was racking up the local awards, it wasn't until he was a teenager that Belmonte would catch a glimpse of his future.
You know, I didn't have any TV kind of experience of bowling. There was one time that I do remember. I was probably mid-teens, 14 years old, and we had some friends go to America who happened to tape on VHS a couple of PBA shows, and then they ended up moving to the States, and they would send us a tape every once in a while.
January, Seattle, 2003. Norm Duke against Walter Ray Williams Jr. Perfection!
But I remember watching 2 people in particular. I remember watching Norm Duke and Pete Weber.
His greatest shots in the next 3 frames.
He's got a hook.
Oh, baby, yeah!
I watched Pete bowl, and it was this guy who was just full of emotion and attitude and entertainment.
Strike to claim it, a strike to claim it, and he got it!
I watched Pete because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I loved that. I loved watching this guy who was so unbelievable. If something happened that didn't go his way, I would be entertained by what would, and vice versa. If he got a lucky break, he'd let everyone know he got a lucky break. So You know, I really idolized both of those two. And now here I am bowling against them. Look, when I was in Orange, if you had have told me, even when I was 20 years old, that I'd be out here bowling against these guys, I would have just slapped you across the face and said, wake up. You know, you're in a dream state. That's not even possible, but, you know, dreams do come true.
It wasn't a dream that came easily, however. Jason Belmonte would go through some PBA growing pains. Choosing to go to the other side of the world is difficult enough, but even more so when it doesn't go as well as you had hoped.
And then the decision to go and bowl on tour when it would be, you know, sometimes 2 months at a time away from home was an incredibly tough decision at first because, one, I didn't know if I was going to be successful. Two, it was extremely expensive, and you know, at that time the Australian dollar was worth half what the American dollar was worth. So it was extremely difficult to justify it if I wasn't having success quickly. The second time I came over here for the PBA, Kimberley came with me, and that made it a lot easier. I didn't have to feel like I was missing home as much because I had a little bit of home with me. And then I ended up winning my first Pro Tour event when she was in the Bowling Centre.
He is locked up in his first career PBA Tour title.
Oh, how beautiful.
Jason Belmonte becomes just the 78th player in PBA history to win his first career title during his first televised appearance.
And I think the fact that I had that little piece of home with me, I had my, you know, the girl who I've been with since I was 17, it just made it so much easier to compete. And I told her that this is what I want to do. The feeling of winning that tournament, I want to feel it again, and I want to feel it again, and I want to feel it again. And she's been nothing but the greatest support system I have. And now with the 2 children, it breaks my heart when I leave. It really breaks my heart. And I could only ever do it knowing that I had a wife strong enough to raise our 2 kids when I'm not there and support me at the same time. And she has done that with flying colours. She's an amazing mother, perfect wife, and I'm very grateful.
That tide definitely turned last year at this very event. Jason made the TV finals for 5 of the 7 shows, winning 3 titles here in Las Vegas, 4 on the season, and narrowly missing out on Player of the Year.
He will be seated directly into match play.
Welcome, everybody.
This year, it's not just his wife, but his entire family making the trip, and Jason is very aware of them while he's out there on the lanes.
My dad's voice is very distinctive. Plus, you put on that Aussie accent in the crowd. When you hear Mum, Dad, Kimberley, and even Aria sometimes yells, "Go Daddy," you know it's them immediately. And it is such an overwhelming feeling of support. This amazing, like, I can't believe they're here. You know, here they are. We're in Las Vegas. We're 1,000,000 miles from Orange, New South Wales, Australia, and they're here to support me, do what I love to do and what I feel like I was kind of born to do.
Even with all of his success, there's still plenty of whispering about the two-handed style. Some say it won't last. Some say it shouldn't even be legal. Jason hears it all, but uses it to drive him forward.
Well, I've dealt with that my entire career. So the snickering about the style, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I love it. I love it when I hear another pro complain about how I bowl. Because to me, that just tells me that they are envious or that they've come to a realization they can't beat me. So that's a very strong and positive tool for me to use against these bowlers.
The Player of the Year race has suddenly gotten very interesting.
You know, I made 3 major telecasts out of the 4. Very close to winning a couple of them. It's just like it's just around the corner. I can feel it, and I feel like if I just bowl to my potential and just allow my ball to do its own thing and not force it, the major will be something that I will own one day. And I'm very, very much fingers crossed hoping that I put it all together this Sunday.